I'll go ahead and share my screen. Hey, I think I remembered everything this time.
I was gonna say, I have to remind you. I don't know what to do. I'm stoned out.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another issue of Civil Chat, your chance to chat civilly. Yeah, that's a horrible tagline. Um, um, yeah, so welcome, everyone. Glad to see everybody's here. I don't know what the weather's like around you, but it is uncommonly rainy here in Colorado, which is a nice change. We don't get a whole lot of rain, so seeing it is great.
Nathan said
Um,
he's got 2 inches of snow up in Conifer, so
right? Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I heard somebody say in Colorado, it may rain, it may snow, it may be 20, it may be 80. We don't know. But anyways, so welcome everybody. This is Civil Chat. This is your chance to ask any questions Autodesk related on civil infrastructure type products. We will do our best to answer your questions. And if we can't answer your questions, we're not just going to make things up because that's not how we do things here. But seriously, this is your chance to ask questions. All
and if you
right.
don't ask the questions, you're going to hear my experience about not getting selected for jury duty today.
Right. Yeah, I almost had to go it with one less Brian. So he just got back from not being called on jury duty, which is good, I suppose, that they're working things out and not needing a jury. Um, but yeah, if you don't ask questions, we don't have a whole lot to talk about. And if you do ask questions, one thing we ask is that you put the questions in the Q&A panel. Don't put them in the chat because, well, it's easy to lose things in the chat. So put them in the Q&A panel. You can chat all you want, please. It's open for chat. If you want to talk about things, point out things I've done wrong, or wow, that was cool, or whatever, that's awesome. But make sure you put your questions in the Q&A panel. And as of right now, there is no question. So there's a really good chance I'll be able to answer yours this session. Now, as usual, I always like to start off by showing something. And I thought I would show off a couple of new features that are available in Civil 3D 2026. The first one is the model viewer. So it's very similar to object viewer. So if I grab this surface and I right click, I get the option to go into my object viewer. All right, and this is old. This has been around forever. Let's see, I changed that to shades of gray. All right, and I can see this. Problem is that, it locks up my drawing. I can't do anything in the drawing. It's frozen. And it's just here. This has been great. I use this all the time. New in 2026 is this thing called the model viewer. Probably should get rid of Teams for the day, huh? I knew I would forget something. Oh, wait, Tina. There we go. Now I won't be bothered anymore by them. I'll get rid of Outlook as well. Okay, so if you select an object, just like I did before, right click, you'll notice kind of in the middle there's the option to add to model viewer. So this is model viewer. And of course it comes up on my other monitor. All right, and so it's very similar to object viewer. You can pan around, you can orbit, right, zoom in, zoom out. Nice thing about this is your drawing is still live. So you can still continue to look around in your drawing. You can pan around in object viewer, check out this thing over here. And then you can also add things to the model viewer. So I can grab my corridor here, right click, and add to model viewer, and you'll see my corridor is now part of the model viewer. And so you can have this, off on your other monitor, so you can see what's going on in 3D and all that fun stuff. You can also do this through the prospector. So if I go to the prospector tab, pipe networks, right click on the pipe network, right? Some things, oh, there it is. I can choose to add to model viewer. And now I have my pipes in the model viewer. And you can see down below my surface, there are the pipes. Pretty cool stuff here. Yeah, knew your fourth monitor would come in handy, huh, Thomas? Yeah, I just have the three, so. Now, another thing we can do with the model viewer is if you notice, there's the object for objects. So if I click on objects, it opens up this little side panel. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. And I can change the display of things. So I'm no longer interested in the corridor. I can just turn off the display of the corridor, and then I can turn it back on as well. Maybe I just want to see just the pipes. I can turn off all my surfaces, off my corridors, and now I'm just looking at the pipes. Now, one thing I would love to see, and I don't think this is an option, at least I haven't been able to find it, is I would love to be able to add a transparency to objects so I can see through them. Like right now, the surface is blocking my view of the pipes, so I actually have to come up underneath it to view the pipes. What I would love is just the action to make this transparent. But if anybody knows if you can do that, please put it in the chat. I would love to be able to do that. All right. There are some settings. So if you come over here to your settings, right, you got some corridor options. There's an auto update. You can change the visual style. So I can change it to like hidden, all right, shaded, shaded with edges. Ooh. All right. I'll probably just leave it set to conceptual. I'm surprised there's no like shades of gray. That was always my favorite in the object viewer. But yeah. So that's the model viewer.
And Chris says you've probably covered this more in depth than Autodesk ever will.
Yeah, in what, 5 minutes there? Nice. Thanks, Chris. All right. So that's the model viewer. And again, one other thing, you can set the view. So as I'm working in the model viewer, maybe I actually want to see my drawing in 3D the way I'm looking at it here. I can set the view and you can see it switches my Civil 3D to match that view. All right, so that's model viewer. Let me go ahead and set that back to plan. All right. Another thing that we can do is I'm going to come over here to this drawing. And what you can see is this surface here is a data reference. So if I come over here to my surfaces, right, you can see that this surface is a data reference. And this might be a really big surface, and I'm only interested in a small piece of it. So what we would have to do is you'd either have to create a cropped surface and then reference that in, or you just have to bring the whole thing in and then maybe mask some of it. But what we can do now is we can create a reference boundary. So when I select my surface, you can actually see up here on the ribbon, there's an option to add reference boundary. And mine's grayed out. And I have no idea why. Right? This is just a data reference. There's nothing unique or odd about it. But I've done this before, and I in prepping for today, I came in here to try to show it, and there's something different about the way things are set up now that I don't get the option to do this. But basically, you would just choose add a reference boundary, choose the polygon, and it would trim out the surface to just this area. And what my understanding is, and I haven't tested this or anything like this, but from what I've heard, is it will only reference that portion of the surface into the drawing. So you don't get the entire surface into the drawing, you just get the piece that you need. Now, you have to start off by referencing the entire thing, but then you apply the boundary, and then you just get that piece. And then if you want, you can change the boundary and then update the reference surface. So you can see the new limits of the boundary.
So it's almost like XClip.
Yeah, kind of. The difference is XClip brings the entire drawing into your drawing, and then you just trim out a piece. With this, it's only bringing in that portion of the surface. And again, that's my understanding. I haven't tested it, but that's what Autodesk has said. And Autodesk is always truthful. So those are the couple of things that I wanted to show off while everybody was frantically trying to be the first person to type in a question. And it looks like we
seriously, that's one of those things he did not know that he was going to ever need. But now that he has it, he'll never be able to deal without it. I had that second part.
Nice.
I always love that. It's like something comes out and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. How did we never have this before?
Right.
And we still are waiting for more questions. We have one commentation on an opinion question. We don't actually have a whole lot of things inside of there.
Yeah, folks, type in questions.
And Simon said, there you go. That would have been a perfect topic for your 30-minute AU presentation in those nice 30-minute classes. Should have submitted it. So did you submit classes this year at AU?
I did. Did I submit 3 or just 2? I think I did all 3.
Yeah, I submitted.
So this year they limited the number of classes you could submit to 3. Before you could submit as many as you wanted. I kind of like that idea of just limiting it. I'm sure those reviewers were getting overwhelmed by some folks.
I laugh because they say that, but when Desiree was doing the conference she did, they had more I mean, they're like, we got 10,000, whatever it was, 1,000, things to review. But that's for MEP, that's for Inventor, that's for all of their stuff. You broke it
Right.
down per topic. It was 125, and you have 6 people reviewing it. That's literally nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I laughed because I did do 2 of them that I knew I wanted to do. The third one I had an idea of what I wanted to do, so I literally chat GPT that sucker. And it's really funny because if you said in chat GPT an Autodesk University presentation, it added so much Autodesk fluff to the description. It was like, wow.
Yeah. So I use ChatGPT just to help me, double check my stuff, make sure that I've got, my grammar's good, my
Right.
no typos and things like that. I've tried to use ChatGPT to help me write things, and oh my God, it puts in so many buzzwords. It's like,
Yes, exactly.
the synergy of the completed. It's like, no, I don't talk that way.
I literally did mine, and it was like I already submitted. I'm like, put this one into Chat GPT, and so this is a presentation for Autodesk University, and it like tripled the length of my presentation description, and it was
Yeah.
like all the words that were so fluffy. It's like, that's
Yeah.
horrible. Yeah, it's
The
like the Dilbert Jargonator.
Yeah, yeah. I do not like buzzwords. I get lost in buzzwords. Maybe it's just me, but man, marketing folks love that stuff.
Well, if you guys can't tell, we are actually, trying to buy time for more questions.
So yeah,
So
come on.
we'll get to the one question. Maybe this will spark some interest in other people in their questions. And Robert asked, "What's the best, fastest, easiest way to train a drafter moving to Civil 3D? What topics should be presented?"
So what is the best, fastest, easiest way to train a drafter moving to Civil 3D? So based off your question, Robert, I'm gonna assume they know AutoCAD decent enough. All right. I was teaching a Civil 3D class one time, and I mentioned something about, I asked my student, if they knew this thing about AutoCAD, and he's like, "Oh, I've been using, CAD for 20 years or something like that." And I'm like, "Okay, go ahead and draw a polyline." He's like, "What's that?" Kid you not, that's really what he said. So I'm going to assume they know AutoCAD. So the best way to train, so yeah, there's several different ways you could go about it. Um, I think the best way is to get somebody that's a professional trainer in to train them. Now, if it's just one person that you need to get trained, maybe you have a reseller that's close by and you can send them to one of their training classes. Unfortunately, most resellers nowadays are doing most of their training online, which I absolutely hate. I think there's so much that you lose when you can't see the expressions of the students. And so I'm always pushing, here at GEI, when I train folks, if I'm training, a handful of people in an office, I will travel to that office to train them because I think in-person training is so much better than online. Now, if it's just like an hour or two with a few folks, then yeah, I'm going to do it online. But if I need to train a group of folks on Civil 3D, I'm going to go to their office to train them if it's possible. So I think in-person training is ideal.
I have mixed
Um,
feelings with that because I agree with you on seeing the thing, but the problem I have with on in-person training is I feel that 3 straight days in a row, after a day and a half, they're just so drink from so much fire hose of information that their brain's ready to explode in the second day and a half. They just don't listen to anything.
Yeah,
It's just
that's a great point. And because I can go to their office and then do work at their office because it's all part of GEI. The way we do it is we'll do half a day of training and then let them get work done there the second half of the day. And then so I'll spend a few days up there. I'll spend like 2 or 3 days up there to get a days and a half worth of training in.
yeah.
Right. And so that's a great point. Um,
So
as
for
far
me,
as
as a person who does training remotely, I'm always like, I would much rather sit down and do 6 half days than 3 full days. And I don't even want those 6 half days to be in a row. I want it to be like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the next Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if
Mhm.
it's remote, because you did classroom training when we both worked for a reseller. On day 3, or God forbid they all do day 4 now, nobody remembered anything. Day 3 was just
Yeah. Um, and then as far as the topics go, it really depends upon what it is they're going to be doing. I think the first step is just general Civil 3D. What is Civil 3D? What is this Civil 3D thing that I'm going to be using? Talking about styles and the dynamic nature. You change this, you can see that change. Those types of things. And then again, depending upon what they're doing, if they're going to be dealing with survey, you get into points. If they're not, you can skip points and move on to like alignments and profiles and those type feature lines and grading. I don't really think the order of it matters. The little introductory piece at the beginning is important. And then again, depending upon the topics or the tasks they're going to be doing, you touch on each of all of those concepts. And then I would hold off like data references to the end. Don't try to throw in data references as they're learning alignments. Throw that onto the end. So that's kind of the order that I would go. If you need resources for training, like I said, you can always reach out to a local reseller. They're always doing training. There are online video platforms that you can get. Eagle Point has a program called Pinnacle. Some resellers will package additional content in with that Pinnacle. So if you have a reseller, they might sell it and they might add some additional content in for it. Online via YouTube, sketchy. You never know what kind of quality you're going to get.
Have you looked at the LinkedIn Learning ones?
I haven't.
I always suggest that, like, if you're going to pay somebody, I always suggest the LinkedIn Learning. The only reason why I do that is they will have more than just Civil 3D. Like if you get Pinnacle, you're getting Civil 3D package. But if you do LinkedIn Learning, then you could actually learn how to play the guitar if you wanted to. It's like basically you got a package for all of the stuff on LinkedIn Learning.
Oh, so LinkedIn Learning isn't you don't pay per class, you pay just access to it all?
I know one of my clients has that and they love it for that reason because they're like, cool, now you need to go learn Photoshop or Bluebeam or whatever else you need to learn for your role. You have that access. So that's the only reason why I suggest it. I know the Revit content up there is decent. I have no idea in the Civil 3D, but I found what their stuff is pretty decent for general type videos.
Yeah. But yeah, and then there's the way I learned Civil 3D, which I think is a great way to learn, but it takes a really long time. And that was by just getting into the software and then going on the forums and answering questions, asking questions and answering questions, right? I always tell people, if you want to get good at Civil 3D, start answering questions that people have.
Yep.
Right? Go onto the forums, see a question and think, no, I might be able to figure this one out, and go figure it out and then post up your answer. You might be wrong, you might get corrected, but that's a great way to expand your personal knowledge. And that's not something that I necessarily would recommend for a brand new user, somebody just coming into Civil 3D. But if you want to get good at a program or whatever, go on to the online community and start answering questions.
And somebody else had set up there, start with land surveying, teach them how to draft the land surveying.
Yeah, if your company does that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of engineering firms out there that just get surveys from, the survey company, and they don't do any surveying. So that wouldn't be as beneficial. No. Maybe how to change the display of points, and then you're good. So.
And Corey said public libraries, some of them actually allow free access to LinkedIn Learning, which I did not know.
That's awesome.
Of course, the problem is they probably don't have the software, so you have to take your own computer, set up next to their computer, watch the video, try it over here. But hey, it's like having a second monitor that way.
Or a fifth monitor, right, Thomas?
Or a fifth monitor or whatever.
All right. Hey, Brian.
Howdy, other Brian.
How you doing? I'm having a problem with Haley's camera. It keeps switching back and forth, left to right, left to right. You guys see?
That's just you. He stayed in the middle to me.
It's just okay. Fantastic. And I have to check.
Is it switching back mirroring, or is it?
Yeah, it's doing a mirroring thing. I see a portion of your. Yeah, it's like the video. I don't know.
Is this my right hand or my left hand?
That looks like your right hand.
Yeah, that's my right hand.
So, Brian, as usual, it's a you thing.
It's a me thing. Yep. It's definitely a Brian. It's a Y thing. Brian instead of yeah. Okay.
You spell your name wrong, so everything's backwards for you.
There you go.
I didn't do it. I'm blaming that one of my parents. All right. Anyways.
All right.
Before we move on real quick, Thomas does have a good point. There are books out there as well. So he mentioned the Ascent books. So
Yep.
you can go out and find some books. We use the Civil 3D Ascent. Was it? I can't even remember that. It was Catapult is the publisher. Yeah, I can't think of the name of the book, but there's books out there. Ascent. It's ASCENT, Ascent, not ASSCENT.
Yeah.
I don't know why would you name your company something that could be an ascent, but anyways. Yeah, so books are also another option. And you can get by with an older book because so much within Civil 3D hasn't changed. But there are some things that have, like for example, the way you do corridor targets are different now than if you get a book that's a few years old. So. Cool. All right. What else we got?
And Tom added on that Knowledge Smart. I used to do some videos for Knowledge Smart way back in the day. All right, so Chris asked a question. I do mostly small G&D plans. I am semi-retired and have an old perpetual license that is unused. If I can get that installed and drop subscription, will I really miss anything from the last 5 or 6 releases? I can go to Flex day by day.
So you're asking about, are the updates worth paying the cost for it? If you have an old standalone license. I guess it depends upon how old the license is, but I mean, we were creating grading and drainage plans just fine 5 or 6 years ago with the software we had, right? So I think if you're doing things that are fairly simple and you don't, if you already have a perpetual license, I don't see any reason not to keep that going that way. Like you said, you could buy some tokens, install the latest version, and just see what you're missing, see if it's better or not. That'd be a great way to try it out. I think you can also, I don't know if you can still get a free trial or not. I think you can.
I believe so.
A 30-day trial or something like that. That's another way just to compare your current version to what the current version is that Autodesk is offering. So, anybody else have any thoughts on that? What do you think? Should Chris drop the bucks to use the current version or keep with the old version?
I think it's like you said, I get this question often too, and it's kind of like, well, if you're doing 1 or 2 plans a year, is that worth the $4,000 a year you have to pay? If you can incur that cost and your subscription fee for that, great. But you have to make that decision as well.
Well, that's where the benefit of the tokens comes into play.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if Revit has the ability to use tokens as easily because so much of it is built, combined, or integrated with like ACC and the BIM Calibrate Pro licenses. But if you can get by, if you're only going to be, so I think it's 7 days a month is kind of the cut even point for subscription versus tokens. So if you're using it more than 7 days a month, then it makes sense to get a license, a subscription license. If you're using it less than 7 days a month, then it probably makes sense to go tokens. I believe that's where the cutoff. Don't quote me on. Don't come sue me if you go over on something, right?
And I have seen a couple of questions pop up in the chat, but I've lost them. So if you guys have asked some questions in the chat, please put them in the Q&A because I've lost them already.
Robert says all the stockholders are saying upgrade. Okay, so I was corrected in the chat. Both Michelle and Tom said that 11 or 12 days a month is the break-even point. So I was wrong on that. Or maybe they're both wrong and I was right. Who knows?
Or maybe they just get a better price than you, or you get a better price, or whatever.
That could be.
They're getting their tokens at a package discount. Yeah, I like the flex licensing that they have now. I think it's actually really nice because, I have some clients like, yeah, I do
Yeah.
this project, I work on it hard for 2 months, that's it. And great, you're using it for 2 months, and you use it 20 days in each of those months. So you're still cheaper to just buy the tokens than you are to go in. And they're like, cool, but I need to go back and look at it 3 months later. I also have the capability to, just open it for that day as well.
Right, right. And we use it tokens here at GEI a lot. So we have about half of our users, if that, no, even less than that, probably about a third of our users have licenses, full licenses that they're assigned. Everybody else uses tokens. And we have so many people that'll just get into it for a few days a month that it doesn't make sense for us to buy them a license. We have a lot of people that work out in the field, right? They'll go out in the field, and then come back, spend a couple days in the software, and then go back out to the field. So for us, tokens was a godsend. It just makes a lot of sense for us. Now, some engineering firms, they're like, we don't do any tokens because they have their engineers and their drafters. They're in the software like every day. And for them, it makes sense that everybody has a license. But for us, the tokens worked out. The problem with having a mix of licenses and tokens is who gets what, right? Because, sometimes this person is just using it every once in a while, but then they get this big project and now they're in it every day for a couple of months. So how do you make sure that they get a regular license, then get them off of tokens? And then, who do you take off the license and put on tokens in their place and all that fun stuff? So, oh, by the way, I don't know if you can tell, we don't have any more questions in the Q&A. So y'all are slacking today.
They all just worked really hard and they did everything perfectly and they ran into no problems whatsoever in the last month.
Right?
I'm looking for the questions that I put in there, but
There we go.
Chat.
So here's the tokens. Michelle put this in the chat. So you can see Civil 3D takes it's $27 a day, 9 tokens. So I don't know if you guys know the way tokens work. If you open up the software and you close it within I think it's 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, you don't get charged any tokens. But once you surpass that, you now have the program for 24 hours, right? And it costs you $27 for that 24 hours for Civil 3D. Revit, I think it's 30 something.
So that's funny because if I open up
Revit is 30.
Most of my projects take more than 10 minutes to open. So especially if it's on ACC and you've never opened it before. So that's kind of a crap.
I think it's geared more for the along the lines of I double click the software. I was like, oh, I meant to open up Civil 3D instead of Revit. Let me close Revit down.
Yeah.
Right. So it prevents you from getting charged for those types of things.
No, depending on how many add-ins you have, Revit can take 5 minutes to open. So.
All right. And so here's how much it costs for each program. So multiple costs $567 a day. I have no idea what that is. That's a lot.
That's if you're using like Inventor, and you want to make sure everything flows properly from your design because your manufacturing will flow properly. So it's one of those things where you're probably not doing that a whole lot.
Yeah. So you can even get here's InfraWorks ICM Ultimate. It's $225 a day. So that's like a water analysis program. So yeah, you can see. So if you ever wanted to try something, you can come in here and just get it. So for example, if you're running Civil 3D, I have a Civil 3D license, but I don't have a collection, right? I don't have the AEC collection. Well, I'm going to run vehicle tracking. It's just going to cost you $12 for that day to run vehicle tracking. So
you guys at GEI, do you have like a mix where you might have a full license of Civil 3D, but you don't have the vehicle tracking because that's something everybody shares? So you token out vehicle tracking?
So our licenses, we have a pool of the AEC collection, which has the Revit and the Civil 3D and the vehicle tracking, the raster design, and all of that fun stuff And then we also have licenses of just Civil 3D. And so the way we do it is the people that are using multiple programs, we make sure they get the AEC collection. And the people that aren't, we give them Civil 3D, but access to the other software through tokens.
Got it.
Right. So if somebody's just has a Civil 3D license and they're like, ooh, I need some vehicle tracking, they go launch it and it costs, $12 a day for them to use it. Whereas, if somebody is like in Civil 3D and Revit and Recap, we're going to make sure that they get a collection. And the way we do it, our reseller helps us out tremendously with this. So they download all the usage, run it through a Power BI report, and they give me the report and they say, move this person from this license to this one, move this one here, move this one here. And they tell me how to change up our licenses to help maximize our investment in our licenses. So.
That's cool. And Robert asked, and this is a good question, do tokens require driver ACC usage? They don't, but my question is, if you are on ACC, are there ACC tokens, or do you still have to buy that person the ACC license for them to use the tokens?
Yeah, so there are no tokens available for the cloud services for Autodesk. So if you're, Docs or BIM Collaborate Pro, those aren't available for tokens. So we have to buy full licenses for those.
So you buy a full person a $900 license for BIM Collaborate Pro, but they only used $60 worth of tokens in the year.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That sounds very Autodesk-y.
Right? Yeah, so if somebody's, needs access to the Revit model in, BIM in ACC, they need the BIM Collaborate Pro, but they might only be in it, like 4 or 5 days a month. Yeah. But we still have to buy them a full license of BIM Collaborate Pro.
And I thought you might find this interesting. There is a project I'm working on where it's a giant airport project, and the civil client is required to do all of their work on ACC.
Mm-hmm.
So now,
yeah, we're getting more and more client-driven requirements to be on ACC as well.
Yep. So it's cool. All right, we got a couple of questions. Oh, okay. Tom found the one from you that I was looking for in the chat. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
So Brandon asks, is there a quicker way to reload line types? Current process is line type, load, file, select .lin file, select line type, reload line type.
Of course, there's always a quicker way. The question is how much time do you want to invest on creating the quicker way, right? So yeah, if you just have to reload line types like once in a blue moon, then yeah, you can just type line type and then browse to the file, load it, and that sort of thing. If this is something you do regularly, you can actually automate it. So for example, let me switch profiles here real quick. I was saying that if the issue with the data reference boundary was because of my profile, and it wasn't. But so for example, we have this drawing setup button. And what this does is when you run this routine, it will actually load all of the line types into the drawing for you to make sure that you've got the correct line types in the drawing. And so you can automate it through list routines or probably .NET or VBA or whatever the other, I don't think they're doing VBA anymore. So probably .NET. But yeah, you can automate it using that sort of thing. But again, you have to invest the time to create the routine to save you time. And so
find one online.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all are familiar with XKCD. It is an absolutely fantastic comic, right? I'm sure you've seen some of these before, but they have one that was, is it this one? Here we go. Is it worth the time? Right. So basically it says, the one axis is how much time you shave off, and on this axis is how often do you do the task. And so basically this says, how long can you work on making a routine task more efficient before you're spending more time than you save across 5 years? So if you save 1 second and you do it 50 times a day, then it makes sense to invest a full day's of work into this time-saving thing. All right. If it shaves off a full day, but you only do it 8 times, or if you do it 1 minute, or how often do you do the task? All right, anyways, you get the idea. right? So this kind of gives you an idea of, how long does it take you to create the routine and how much time does it save and is it worth it, right? So now, for example, if you only save 1 second and you only do it once a year, you probably only want to spend about 5 seconds trying to automate it. So this is a great little chart. I love this chart. And if you're not familiar with XKCD, just go spend a day hitting the random button and seeing what's there. It's a absolutely fantastic cartoon. So
Tom also
if you're
said
geeky and mathy and sciencey, you'll love it.
oh yeah. Tom said line types can also be imported through the design center and with a macro.
Right. So Design Center. So the problem with Design Center, which is absolutely is a valid option, and correct me if I'm wrong here. So here's my Design Center. You can only do it from another drawing. So you can't reload a .lin file. All right. But if you have a drawing that has all your line types in it, you can just go ahead and pull it from that drawing. So yeah.
So Tom pulled up the question from Quinn. How do I make this command toggle rather than ask for a prompt? And he's got Control-C _ LW display.
All right. So LW, I'm not familiar with that particular command. So I'm assuming it's
display.
Okay. Yeah.
You missed
So there's the line weight. So I'm assuming it toggles your line weight display on and off, right? So LW display, you can toggle it on and off. I don't have anything that has any line weights to it in this drawing, so it's not going to display. LW display, and then it's asking you to turn it on or off, right? So a lot of times you can find a system variable that it toggles, right? I don't know if this is that way or not, but if you can find one, you can then do that. And so, for example, if it's 1 or it's 0, right? So you can create a routine. Let's see. Let's make up a variable and we'll call it Brian is cool, right? And if Brian is cool is 1, then Brian is cool. But if Brian is cool is 0, then Brian isn't cool. And you want to be able to toggle back and forth between them. So what you can do is you can create a Lisp routine that takes the value of Brian is cool, subtracts 1 from it, and then uses the absolute value of that. So if Brian is cool is 1, right, and I hit the toggle, it'll subtract 1 from it, and it'll be 0. But then if it's already 0, it'll subtract 1 from it, which will make it a -1, but then you take the absolute value of it and it brings it back up to 1. So that's one way you can do it. So if you can find a system variable and it's either 1 or 0, you can just take the absolute value of that value -1 and then assign that to the system variable again. I hope that made sense. Did that make sense to you, Brian?
I believe it made sense to me.
Okay, cool. So that's one thing that you could do to toggle system variables. So a lot of times you can also, so if you hit F1, it'll take you to it. So I typed LW display and it was prompting me for something. And now, I hit F1 and it takes me to the help for it. So hopefully, I was hoping there might be like a system variable. There it is, LW display system variable. So yeah, here you can see it's either 0 or it's 1. All right, so you can use a Lisp routine. Let's see, let me dock my command line here. I'll make it a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to type some list here. So it's what, get var LW display. And you can see right now it's set to 0. If I turn it on and I do the same thing, it's now set to 1. So you can, do the, set your command to set var LW display to the absolute value of 1 minus get var LW display. Let's see if I can actually write this out. All right, so it would be set var LW display to the absolute, I can't even remember how to do absolute values, just ABS
Yep.
of the 1 or minus 1. So we're subtracting from 1 the get var LW display, and that should do it. And then you would, like do a, the defund C colon or whatever, right? I'm not going to code the whole thing, but that's the process. And so that I think that would be the code that you would need. So let's see if I can just copy this.
Quinn says that makes sense. Thank you.
And then we throw it in here. Right, so you can see my line weight is on. So if I take that little piece of code and paste it in here, and I missed something. Oh, let's try that again. I forgot a quote to end my, and you can see now it's off. If I do it again, now it's back on. So there you go. Those stupid parentheses and quotation marks, right, Robert? You guys know what LISP stands for, right? LISP. It's lost in stupid parentheses. All right. What else we got, Brian?
All right, Carrie came up with when using asterisk, prefix, suffix, layer identifiers for Civil 3D objects creation, will these custom layers be carried over when data shortcutting the object elsewhere?
No. So one thing to remember about data shortcuts and data references, right? Data shortcuts and data references are two different things. I always try to ingrain this into people, right? The data reference, so this here is the data reference. This is a surface that is referencing the data from a surface in a different drawing, right? So we're referencing the data. The data shortcut is the tool that we use to create the data reference. The analogy I like to use is a desktop shortcut. All right, so here I've got Civil 3D 2026, right? When I double click on this, it launches the program, just like a data shortcut establishes a data reference. Once my program is up and running, I've got Civil 3D running right now. What happens to my Civil 3D if I erase this off my desktop? Nothing, right? My Civil 3D continues to run just fine. The problem is if I need to relaunch the program again, I either need to recreate this shortcut or launch it some other way. Just like with data references, once the reference is created, I no longer need the shortcut. If I get rid of the shortcut, the reference persists. However, if I want to reference that object again into another drawing, I either have to recreate the shortcut or reference it some other way. And there's not a whole lot of ways that you can reference things in Civil 3D without using a data shortcut. Plan Production Tools is the only way I can think of to do it. Right? Anyways, so that's just kind of me going off on my little tirade about the difference between data references and data shortcuts, which had absolutely nothing to do with your question, right? So the question was, if I create a surface on a layer, which is what that little prefix is going to do, does that layer go into the other drawing? No, because we're not referencing the surface into the other drawing. We're referencing the data of the surface into a surface in that other drawing. So in that other drawing, you're in essence creating a surface, and it's getting all of its data from that surface over there. We're not referencing the surface, we're referencing the surface's data. So no, it does not do that. And I lost all my stuff. And my chat, where's my Q&A? Fascinating. Oh, there it is. Okay. So hopefully that answered the question.
Cool. And then Nathan asked, is there a way to remove VBA objects from your drawing? We've installed VBA Enabler in 24, but still receive the pop-up when batch plotting, which is causing issues.
I don't know. Is there a way to remove VBA objects? I don't know. I don't even know what really a VBA object is to say whether or not it can be removed or not. So I know what you're talking about, Nathan. So when you open up an old drawing, it says, hey, there's VBA things in here. Do you want to convert or ignore? Right? That's what you're talking about, right, Nathan? Yeah.
Yep.
So I know what you're talking about. And I don't really know what that little warning is warning us about. I think it's because they switched from using VBA to .NET. And so there were like routines that were running in the program that were VBA. And now they need to be .NET or something along those lines. And Tom asked in the
Right.
if they're old subassemblies, so that might be.
I've
Yeah,
seen
so-
it for pipe rules a lot.
Have you?
Yeah, pipe rules is one of the big ones.
Okay.
And once you remove the pipe rule, a lot of the times that goes away,
Good to know.
or you amend the pipe rule.
But yeah. So Nathan in the chat put old drawings from 2018. Yeah, it was about that time that they made the switch from the VBA to the .NET, or maybe it was even earlier than that.
I've seen it as early as 16 too. So
Yeah.
okay,
Anyway,
2016, so long ago.
right. Oh, crazy, right? I think back, it's like, ooh, I got to play on the Civil 3D 2004 version. Damn, I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, that was called LDD.
I never used, okay, I take that back. When I started, I was started on LAN desktop. Actually, I started on Eagle Point, but we quickly moved to LAN desktop. 2014. And then I changed jobs and I had to go, or not 2014, release 14. And then changed jobs and I had to go back to release 13, which I believe was still considered soft desk.
Wait, AutoCAD 13? Are you kidding me? Wow. Okay.
No, I'm not kidding you.
Sorry. I am
Yeah, this
sorry.
is back in 1999, 1998, somewhere around there.
See, I thought we weren't supposed to talk about AutoCAD Release 13 ever again. It was so
See,
bad, so
I used,
monumental.
I used AutoCAD Release 13, but it was literally for millwork shop drawing, so I was literally just drawing lines, and it wasn't that bad.
It would crash just because you looked at it wrong.
Well, I had that problem with AutoCAD for my entire AutoCAD career. I mean, if I turned or scooched in my chair, I hit Control S to save because that could cause AutoCAD to crash. If you literally went through the display, you like hit F2 to hit the display. I swear to God, every fifth thing on the damn freaking command line was or listed back then was save.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, when I
line
first started
offset
teaching on-
save. Line save.
Yeah. When I first started teaching Civil 3D, I was up in front of class, like save off and Civil 3D is going to crash, save off. And one of my students looked up at me and said, Brian, you got to be more positive.
Huh.
I thought for a moment, I'm positive Civil 3D is going to crash, save off. And
Positive this is going to crash. So there you go, Nathan. A couple of things to think about is look at old subassemblies and/or Thomas, you said pipe networks, pipe rules.
Yeah, pipe rules.
And there you go. And Tom even gave you the link in the chat, Nathan. And that is the last question. We have 10 more minutes.
All right. So, yeah, if anybody has any more questions, now's a great time to ask. It said worst release ever, never again.
Yeah. I think we uninstalled it and went back to 12.
Base. Maybe I didn't hate 13 because I was in the DOS base days. I went from AutoCAD DOS base to 13.
So my understanding on 13 was it was still a DOS version, but it was Windows
compatible.
I think it was the first full version because because we had AutoCAD 12, which was DOS, and then I went in on a weekend and uninstalled it on everybody's machine and installed the Windows version. And yeah, Monday when everybody came in, I was yelled at for about 2 hours, and then by the end of the week, everybody was praising it, saying, "Oh my God, this is so awesome!" Yeah, I'm like, "That's right, people." Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you do with all the digitizers?
Oh yeah. What we do with all the digitizers? We had a burning party. No.
I literally had my digitizer up until about like 6 years ago. It was like had the old COM port on it, which computers don't even have.
Oh my God.
I was like,
A
okay, I gotta finally
1310
get rid of
COM.
this.
That's awesome. I think you can get a USB adapter for it now. But hey, I can't blame you. You work in Revit. Oh, sorry.
Oh. Okay,
All
so
right,
we got a few questions, so let's
yep,
go ahead and see if we can get these answered before the
yep. Two
time's up.
questions popped up. Have you used the Civil 3D hydraulic modeling tools for culvert sizing? If so, any recommendations or tips? Looking into switching our work from HydroCAD / Culvermaster.
All right, so there are some tools up here. We're analyze. Uh, there is the Express tools, right? So this is on the Analyze tab, Design Express. This is basically you can Manning's calculator, right? So you can calculate all sorts of things like channels, and you can do a trapezoidal and a user-defined section. There is an option in here for culverts. I don't trust this. I was playing around with this one time, and my tailwater was higher than the headwater.
Yeah. Oops.
Which
Gotta watch out for that.
I don't know how that happens. Right. And so this is not something I would trust. This is the only culvert calculator within Civil 3D. The Innovyze software might have other tools that will help you with this. But yeah, I don't trust this one. So do you know of any other culvert analysis tools in Civil 3D, Brian? I know InfraWorks has some, but they're
no,
more
it's
the
this one right
planning
here.
type of stuff.
Well, you said the key thing inside Civil 3D. I do not know.
Yeah.
I mean, prior to this, I was using Culvert Master, where in the same instance, Brian, Culvert Master can still do the same thing, where an individual was trying to push certain amount of flow through, and their tailwater was in fact higher than their headwater.
Yeah.
Because it was backing up. And they didn't realize they had like 2 acre-foot of storage behind their culvert, and didn't realize, but they're like, oh, but it goes through. No, it's kind of one of those things. This is a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, I've had good luck with like the channels and stuff. Yeah. So this is basically you've got a prismatic channel with steady state flow, Manning's calculation, right? Mm-hmm. So this seems to work well, but the culverts, I don't trust.
Yeah, I'm used to Flowmaster and Culvert Master.
All right, what else do we got, Brian?
Is there a way to fix the issue of a .lsp file not loading when using the drag and drop method of loading when multiple drawings are open?
I don't know of an issue of LSP file not loading when the dragging and dropping so multiple drawings are open. Is that something you're familiar with, Brian?
I have never. No, I use either AppLoad or write it into the AutoCAD doc.lsp for auto loading Lisp routines. There are.
I do as well.
Yeah, I've never done a drag and drop. No, I try not to drag and drop anything. I'll be absolutely honest. Even when I've got my AutoCAD open, I will not drag a drawing into my AutoCAD to open it. I will still go old school way, go file open and go to it. Okay. I don't double click on DWG files. I'm highly very nasty to people that do, only because in a world with many different profiles and many different standards, if you double click on a DWG, it's going to launch the last version of AutoCAD you had open with the last profile that was open. So you don't really know what it is. I mean, Revit's a little different because, hey, but even with Revit, you can't do that either because it may launch the wrong Revit version, right, Brian?
Yeah, but that's different than drag and drop. That's
yeah, 100%.
If I have any program open, I have no problem drag and dropping. I mean, I do it to my children all the time. A program should be able to handle it. But so if the program's already open, I'll drag and drop that program onto there, but I won't ever double click.
Yeah. Okay.
And for some, you might not know this, but if you let's go find a drawing here. Let's see program.
And while Brian's doing that, it's like, if it's open, I'm just, that newfangled indoor plumbing don't work for me. I like to open it up from the outside. So yeah, that's just the way I work. I got a friend that refuses to use the ribbon. They will like the pull down. So
yeah. Hey, So one thing, I tell people is that I see people do this all the time. They'll have Civil 3D open. They'll be looking at a drawing and then they'll double click on the drawing in Windows Explorer. right? And like, no, don't do that. I agree with y'all on that, absolutely. But I don't want to have to go browse for this drawing that I'm looking at right here, God damn it, right? I just want to open up this drawing. So if you're one of those cases, a couple options. You can either take it and drag it to the command line. That will open the drawing the exact same as if you went file open, or you can drag it up here to where your tabs are. Right, and that will open up the drawing. So this is a tutorial drawing, so it's read only, but I now have that drawing open. So that's what I tell folks is like, if you're looking at the drawing, you don't want to have to go browse for it, just drag it to either the command line or your tabs along the top. So,
Or the other option is to copy, as Corey put down there, to copy the path from Windows Explorer and paste it into there.
you could do that, but dragging it is just a lot easier.
I think a lot of people don't know this. We go back to Windows Explorer.
Yeah.
If you right click on the file, you can say copy path. And not only will it copy the path, it will actually copy the file name with that path. So then it'll automatically say, hey, I'm going to do this dw.dwg. So it's not even like it browses you to the folder and then you have to find that file. If there's 100 files in that folder, it will actually grab the entire DWG itself.
Yeah, so if I go open and then I just paste that in.
Yep.
So it has quotes. Does that affect it?
Nope.
I've never done that because I always knew it had
path, like they go to the top of Windows Explorer, they copy the path. But if you actually right click on the file and do copy path, it gives you the file name and extension. Yep. So therefore it will open it up in the program without having you browse in that folder.
And if you're using an older version of Windows, if you right click and you don't get the copy as path, right, you can shift right click and then you'll see copy as path. All right, what else we got? We got 3 minutes.
Rotate command, but always pick the center of the block as the rotate point.
I gotcha. Let's see. Full palettes. I'll just throw a block in here. All right. I want to rotate this and I want to use the insertion point, which is the grip, right? You can just grab the grip and use your grips to do this. So when you grab a grip, I'm moving the grip. I'm sorry, I'm stretching the grip, and because this is a block, it's the same thing as moving. If I hit the space bar, I'm now moving the block, which is, again, the same thing as stretching in this example. But if I hit space one more time, I'm now rotating the block. And if I hit space again, I'm scaling it. Hit space again, I'm mirroring it. Hit space again, I'm back to stretching. So we're stretching, we're moving, we're rotating, we're scaling, we're mirroring. All right, so you can just grab that grip, hit space twice, and you're rotating it. Now, if you need to do a whole lot of them, you just go into the properties and change the rotation value.
Yep.
And last question from Tom. Would you please show how it is to access the infrastructure features product roadmap for Civil 3D?
I don't remember how to access it.
It's called Google.
Yeah.
Let me Google that for you. I think Ryan, you did that to me once, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm sure I have.
I know you've done it. Yeah.
He's the one who taught me how to let me Google that for you.
Exactly.
They've changed it though. So yeah, if you just do a search for infrastructure roadmap Civil 3D, you'll be able to find it somewhere. There's Revit. There's there you go. But yeah, just do a search for it. You'll be able to find it. This is what the Civil 3D team is working on, what they're planning on working on immediately, what they've got in the pipeline, what they're maybe thinking about. Do you have to have that? I don't know if I'm. Yeah, so if I come over here to in progress, so you can see they're currently working on a Civil 3D Revit interoperability, horizontal regression analysis, which will be awesome. I have no idea what that is.
And usually what in progress means, you'll either see it in the next version or a point version.
Hopefully.
Usually yeah. What that means.
Point version followed by a point break.
Right. And then, like, for example, on late, then launched, there's the model viewer, reference sub area of data shortcut surface. That was what I tried to show you, but failed miserably doing, things like that. So, all right. With that, it is 12:30. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, Tom said, make sure you vote on the things that you want, because that really lets the Civil 3D development team know that, hey, our users are really interested in this, right?
To a point.
Get in
On the
here and
other
vote.
side, some of the things that have the most votes, they're just like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah, and it just might not be something that's feasible, or if it might just be too big of a lift.
Yep.
Right? You might have like thousands of people voting to make sure that Civil 3D can make me a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And that's just not something they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Because it's just not feasible.
And for those of you who are listening, you can share the recording. Brian will post this up on his YouTube site.
Yep.
So you can share his YouTube site for everybody to go back and listen to all of the knowledge that Brian has shared with us over the years. Or at least over the years he's been posting his YouTube videos.
Right. It's been a few years now.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing you all again next month. Invite your friends, your neighbors, your parents, your kids, anybody that wants to join us. They're cool. And with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. Y'all have a great day. And don't forget that this weekend is Mother's Day. So.
Oh, crap. Thanks, Brad. That's the best tip of the day.
No,
saved my marriage
if
right
you have a kid in Little League, this weekend is Little League Day, because I assume the moms don't want the kids around. So they load you up with baseball crap.
There you go. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. Thanks. Bye.